It's time to envision a post-COVID future. As we move forward from response to recovery, what challenges and opportunities lie ahead? How will we move into the future with the knowledge we have gained? How will we continue to learn? How will Windsor-Essex reflect, renew, and transform? What comes next depends on how well we understand and respond to the complicated uncertainties of this time. Together, let's explore our collective comeback from this current crisis. The Envision Community Speaker Series is brought to you by the University of Windsor and the City of Windsor.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the virtual Envision series. The University of Windsor is proud to partner with the City of Windsor in presenting these Windsor community online gatherings to imagine, contemplate, and envision the next chapter that will follow the pandemic, a time that I know we are all looking forward to and planning for. We have had the privilege to host a variety of experts in business, politics, policy, and education. In a few minutes, we'll be hearing from Roseann O'Reilly Runte, the President and CEO of the Canada Foundation for Innovation and Order of Canada recipient. Before we begin, for those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Peter Hauser, Dean of the Faculty of Science here at the University of Windsor. Since this seminar is being held virtually, a singular land acknowledgement does not capture the richness of our distribution across many locations in the world. As many of the attendees are located here in Windsor, including myself, I would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwa, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi. Attendees are invited to consider their own position with regard to the land where they find themselves. As we make this land acknowledgement, it is also important that we continue to do the work to address systematic and historic injustices that Indigenous peoples have experienced. Before we start, we bring to you welcome messages from both the Mayor of Windsor, Drew Dilkins, and the University of Windsor President and Vice Chancellor, Dr. Rob Gordon.
Hi everyone, Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkins here. I wanted to say welcome and thank you for attending this session of the Envision a Post-COVID Future Speaker Series. And I am proud to be co-presenting the series as a partnership between the University of Windsor and the City of Windsor. This series is about inspiring. It's about learning and imagining what's ahead in our region following this pandemic. Each month, we'll be joined by nationally renowned guest speakers with expertise in areas such as business, social justice, innovation, policy, and technology. Sessions are free to attend and will look at a wide range of topics: the state and future of Canada after the pandemic, Ontarians on the move, imagining learning and equitable futures post-pandemic, COVID as a catalyst to innovation and discovery, and much, much more. This series connects to the important initiatives and links to the vision of Windsor Works, the economic development strategy Windsor City Council adopted to diversify and strengthen our economy and to support the city's future growth. Windsor Works is a roadmap for our future. And this speaker series and this partnership between the University of Windsor and the City of Windsor is part of how we get to where we want to be. Thank you to University President and Vice Chancellor Dr. Robert Gordon and to the team working behind the scenes on this series. And thanks to each of the guest speakers joining us over the next 7 months. I'm proud of this partnership that helps us go beyond recovery, moving toward envisioning how to thrive in a post-COVID world. And I'm glad you're joining us for the conversations to follow. Welcome, and thanks for being here.
I'm Rob Gordon, President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Windsor. I want to thank you for your interest in the Envision, a post-COVID future speaker series, which we are proud to be co-presenting with our partner, the City of Windsor. From now through November, we'll be bringing together leaders, experts, and community members to explore the medium and long-term implications of the global pandemic on society, the economy, our work, and our lives. While the immediate response to COVID-19 continues to be a key focus for all of us, it's now time to start looking beyond that to what happens next, to the challenges, the opportunities, how we've changed, and what we've learned. What comes next depends on how well we understand and respond to the complicated uncertainties of this time. It's time to explore the landscape beyond recovering from the crisis to envision how to thrive in the emerging post-COVID landscape. There's no doubt we will continue to face many challenges on the road to recovery, but I continue to be inspired by the resilience, commitment, and generosity of our community. Although we have physically separated, we continue to face these challenges together. University of Windsor researchers are studying the effects of COVID in a myriad of ways that will help inform how we tackle future issues and challenges. Hundreds of instructors who teach at the university threw themselves into the enormous effort to move the majority of our courses online this year. Staff from across campus have shifted to supporting students and colleagues virtually and have reimagined services and programs from scratch to meet the needs of these unusual times. Our students have contributed hundreds of thousands of hours of community service throughout the pandemic. It has been an exhausting time, but through it all, there has been learning, partnership, innovation, and knowledge creation. There are many lessons we will want to take forward with us into the future. I want to thank Mayor Drew Dilkens, the team from the university and the city who have brought this program together, and all of the speakers who have agreed to be part of it. We are thrilled to be partnering on this inspiring project. I look forward to learning with all of you.
Thank you, Rob and Drew. I am proud to introduce today's keynote speaker, Dr. Roseann O'Reilly Runte. As mentioned earlier, Dr. Runte is the President and CEO of the Canada Foundation for Innovation. Since its creation in 1997, the CFI has ensured Canadian researchers have the tools, the cutting-edge labs, facilities, and equipment they need to push the frontiers of knowledge in all disciplines and to contribute to the full spectrum of research, from discovery to technology development. Dr. Runte has led a number of universities in Canada and the US, including serving as President and Vice Chancellor at Carleton University, President of l'Université de Sainte Anne, Principal of Glendon College, President of Victoria University, and of Old Dominion University. In each of these positions, she has played an instrumental role in the economic development of the regions in which they are located. A member of the board of a number of businesses, including the National Bank of Canada, LifeNet, and Jean Coutu, she has also served as president of the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, of the Foundation for International Training, and as a member of the executive of the Club of Rome and the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons. She has been a member of the Victoria Industry National Development Authority, the Virginia Advanced Shipbuilding Integration Centre, the Ontario-Quebec Private Sector Advisory Committee, and the Advisory Board for SunGard SGT. She has a Ph.D. from the University of Kansas. Today, Dr. Runte will be exploring with us the idea of COVID as a catalyst for innovation and discovery. This talk will propose new ways to take what we have learned from this pandemic to design innovative projects based on local and regional strength, collaboration, and the possibilities of science. She will touch on what that means for Windsor. Following Dr. Runte's presentation, we will have a brief question and answer period. Please feel free to submit via text your questions through the Q&A function on your screens, and we will get to as many as we can in the time allotted. Without further delay, please join me in welcoming Dr. Roseann O'Reilly Runte.
Dr. Hauser, thank you for that lovely introduction, which was far too generous. Your Worship, Mr. President of the University, and citizens of Windsor, thank you all for welcoming me to this podium today and for thinking about the future. And as we've gone across the country at the Canada Foundation for Innovation, we've been finding that young people really believe and are hopeful for the future. And for them, the most important thing is to be able to contribute positively. And I feel that energy and desire, not only in the students in Windsor, but in the citizens. So I congratulate you on having the excellent planning exercises that you've had to date. And I'd like to thank all the people that spoke to me as I tried to do a little bit of research to prepare my few words today. I feel a little bit like the Zoroastrians who centuries ago wanted to migrate to India and were told by the Rajas at the time that there was absolutely no room for them. They couldn't take any more people. And the head of the Zoroastrians took a glass of water and a spoonful of sugar, and he stirred the sugar into the water, and he said, "You see, it fits in the glass. There is space for more ideas, and perhaps our population will make the whole country sweeter." Well, you all have so many ideas. I hope you'll consider mine to be a little bit like the sugar in the glass, and that maybe it will just add a little bit to what you've already done. Windsor is a fine community with extraordinary potential. It's a relatively small community, and so the areas of development have to be focused and prioritized. At the same time, diversification is essential for economic growth in the current changing context. You've got very strong assets around which you can build. Location, automotive and other manufacturing, a strong university engaged in research, agricultural base, vibrant cultural facilities, and a positive and strong community. You've got assets that are under development, and I think that those assets would be the core for what you might do building around them. The bridge, the university and the hospital, the college and tech hub. In Canada, we're often known as being modest, perhaps too modest. And I think Windsor wins a prize for that. You are hiding your light under the bushel, under the barrel. Windsor is a center, it's a hub. It's a place to be, to work, to do business and visit. It's not the end of the line, but a gateway that operates in several directions, not just to the south, but to the east and west, the rest of Canada. It's the busiest commercial crossing in the country. How could it be even better? How can you be a commercial hub and not just a crossing? So let's start with the bridge. And I know that you're all planning it, but I think it's time to step up the plans. First of all, how can people easily arrive and leave, cross back and forth? How can goods be transported to their final destinations once they have arrived in Canada? We've all been at border crossings, and it happens even this week in Windsor, where there's a long lineup. But what can we do to facilitate that? Could we challenge Customs and Immigration to make the new bridge a kind of a model for new ways to facilitate and speed up the crossing, using sensors, using passes? How could they do this? We also should use modeling and simulation to show what will happen when people, when cars and trucks cross the bridge. And one has to think about the model that one would like to create. For example, in Cornwall, they just built the new bridge, which bypasses entirely Cornwall, which is great for traffic downtown. There isn't any more. It's not so great for business downtown because people no longer, at least those going to cross the border, don't stop in the downtown of Cornwall. If one creates a model of what it will look like, one can share that model with people on their own screens and computers around the city, and people can make suggestions and think about what they'd like Windsor to be. Should it be a pass-through? Should it be a destination? How can you map out ways to get people to visit and to transport goods? One of the ideas that one might have about transporting goods is to create a transportation hub outside the city, where goods can be warehoused and shipped in every direction. Amazon and other companies have such hubs in the States, and they use the hub as a ground where huge semi-trucks can come and park, unload their goods into a giant warehouse, and they store the items for redistribution, which means that the trucks offload, decrease the cost per liter of fuel, and pick up goods going where they are headed, so it increases efficiency. This could ensure that Windsor's not just a border crossing, but a location where goods are stored sorted and redistributed, which would create some employment. Windsor is a good place for people to visit, but one needs to advertise this and add to the incentives to visit when the bridge is created. It's a good opportunity to do that. One thing is easy parking. In the States, parking is often free and inexpensive. When you go to Toronto, you can, ransom your firstborn child to pay for the parking lot. Windsor should have some kind of interesting parking if you don't already, and create weekend packages like the symphony, museum, casino visits, meals at select restaurants if you have tickets to these things, and a hotel together, so that it makes dinner, concert evenings work really well. Niagara does this right now, and they're quite successful. I noted that in the information that you have that there was a concept for a film festival. Film festivals are major efforts, and they cost a lot of money to put together. So why not think of something more simple? For example, in Ottawa, the British High Commission sponsored an outdoor film series projecting films on the wall of the High Commission on nice evenings during the summer. This could be quite an interesting project to bring people to Windsor and for the people who live in Windsor. And then incentives to return. A silly idea, create the Gordie Howe team and collect stamps for every event attended. And when you complete the roster, the size of a hockey team, a free ticket to maybe the museum. Windsor is a great place to live, but how could you make it even greater? Fourier, a French architect at the beginning of the 20th century, proposed housing communities built around the school, the library, with a park, athletic fields, and shops. This was actually the basic idea for suburbs that were built in the 20th century in the States and in Canada too. But there was a problem because contractors built the housing and basically stopped there, and the amenities that were supposed to get built didn't get built, which meant that people who lived in the suburbs had to have 2 cars so that they could drive to work, to the place of employment, as well as to piano lessons and daycare and sporting events for their children. So recently in Northern Virginia around George Mason University, they've built several model communities that have taken on this design, and the center is traffic-free with walk-to amenities, cafes, stores, cars parked around the outside, and housing built around the outside, which means that there are less congestion, pleasant place to live, and no traffic, which is always a problem in Northern Virginia. So what could Windsor consider? Could there be affordable housing? That's very much in the air these days. And, it sounds to me like there may be government support for affordable housing considerations. So I would keep a watch on this file and think how one could qualify for assistance to build kind of model communities for affordable housing. For example, young teachers in local schools may not be able to afford housing near the schools. What if around the university there was a belt of small housing for starting teachers, for young graduate students starting their careers? This could be a really interesting community development around the institution. But whatever you do, you should build housing that really rocks. It has to be so desirable that people would pay a premium even if it weren't affordable. And that way you'll attract young professionals in many fields. One of the things most important to young professionals is daycare, and there's a federal daycare program. What if the concept of daycare were built next to the housing? It would be really convenient for parents to leave their children on the way to work, and pick them up on the way home. They wouldn't have to drive across town to do this, saving time for them. And the daycare would be even better if it were surrounded by even a small park that would be community used, would be a real asset to the neighborhood. The McConnell Foundation has funded playgrounds to build good communities, and has statistics showing that that will improve the success rate of children in schools and the quality of life in the community. Safe communities. Companies like Siemens, and I note Siemens because I've seen what they've done, have built model communities in the United States as examples of what their capacity is in terms of technology. The communities include, for example, sensors that notify residents of unusual vehicular traffic. It might be possible to have a similar project in Windsor, a connected community. Bring on the cloud if it's possible. And this might be done as part of one of the smart city projects. And that would be really attractive, not only for people working at home today, but as people return to work, we know that the idea of working not everyday kind of hybrid models of work at home and in the office will be more and more popular. Having connectivity is key to making that possible. And so one might have your tech hub, the university, hospital connected by a cloud that would enable good communication among them, but also in the housing in between. Also, one has to think of movement. Windsor is the automotive center, and you're doing research on electric cars and autonomous vehicles. Why not have a few already in use and give it some hype? Waterloo has been announcing its autonomous buses on campus. Google Waymo has robot taxis and driverless shuttles. And they have driverless vehicles on the campus at Ann Arbor. So it could be on this side of the border too. And Windsor could be a model for a specific kind of vehicle and technology. Even Ottawa has an interprovincial zip line, and I know that you were thinking of having an international one as part of a project a few years ago, but it's not impossible. It might be something that would be simply a fun thing, but it also could be possibly useful. Should be environmentally friendly. That is a big issue today for everyone, essential to the future of humankind. So how can whatever is built in terms of housing be environmentally friendly? So you'd have a community that would be caring, connected, safe, and environmentally friendly, and could be a model for all communities in Canada. If you're going to do something new, why not envisage and dream of the best possible? The university has been really successful and doing exactly what universities should do. Look at regional development and possibilities, from automotive manufacturing to the environment, to law, to medicine. The university has been supporting the community and helping make future progress possible. And this will support the economic development of the region. Medicine. It was a very, very smart move for the university to collaborate with Western for medical school. This is really, really important. And the construction of the hospital with the university, the medical school, and the hospital, it's a great triangle of strength and possibilities for the future. The university has already noted that the field of proteomics is important and has recruited extraordinarily strong faculty, really impressive. It combines people in the biological and chemical sciences with medicine, which is a really good link between science and the Faculty of Medicine. This is a field which is growing and is likely to grow. I note that the only other strong place that I notice is UVic on the West Coast. This could be the tandem. One could work together for national center and collaboration on proteomics. It's really important for eventual economic development. It's used for drug design, for the development of drugs, for the identification of side effects, including the tailoring of disease treatment, as well as crop engineering and food safety. So it is a field that has great promise, and I think Windsor can say proudly that it is moving ahead there and see what could be done in developing that field. The university got a $500,000 grant to work on the pandemic from the CIHR, the Canadian Institute of Health Research. And bioinnovation is going to be developing right now in the country around hubs. And the plan is to have a few hubs in the country around which there will be development that will move the bioinnovation project ahead. Those hubs will include the development of medicines and vaccines, the manufacturing of them, but also devices, medical supplies, and there are a number of possibilities that Windsor could identify as areas of specialization in the research area with proteomics and in applications because of your manufacturing capabilities. What other parts of the chain would be needed to help Canada as we look forward to being basically self-sufficient if there were ever another pandemic? We know that when there's a pandemic, borders close, and we were successful in buying vaccines. We want to be able to manufacture them and have them available in Canada. But a vaccine is not just it includes a number of adjuvants that are needed to mix with the vaccine. Those have to be produced. It needs the vials, the needles, the whole rollout of the system. And when vaccines are produced, you need to produce other things in those factories. You can't just produce vaccines. So bioscience innovation, creating an environment that is perfect for Windsor is possible. And the announcement for the soft launch of those hubs just went out yesterday. I think Windsor should look and see how it might join with, for example, Toronto or other institutions as they create a distributed hub. The medical school at the university can thus help grow these fields, but its attachment is really important and essential with the university. The medical school is important as well, because if you look at what's going on right now, there has been noted that there is a shortage of 1,000 doctors. They're going to have to increase the enrollment at medical schools. Most medical schools have no more space. Windsor's got a new medical school and a new hospital. Seems like there might be space and there might be place for interns to work. If I were Windsor, I think I'd raise my hand and get online and say, let's do some of that here. The Faculty of Law at the university, it's got a specialty in international law. Canada-US law is really very important and more important these days than ever when we're trying to think about economic development, pipelines, environmental issues, sharing Great Lakes, and so on. The University of Windsor should really focus on that Canada-US law issue, which they already have, but actually even perhaps do media training for faculty and students so that when the media has an issue, or identifies an issue, Windsor will be the go-to place where they'll seek answers and expertise on a topic. That will also increase enrollment and have people interested in studying international law at Windsor. Automotive. Cars are not going to go away, so we're still going to need to explore materials. And when we think about the environment, we need ever lighter materials, durable materials, and non-polluting ways of producing them. So the exploration of the materials and the way automobiles are constructed is important, because whether they're autonomous, electronic, or whether we're using new trams and bus systems, all of those things need the carcasses, the frames, and those need to be produced. And I think the university has a really strong look at exploring materials, but that should be moved ahead even more. And it's important that the vehicles be designed for safety, comfort, as well as speed. So probably we know it's going to be like 10 years before we get electronic and autonomous vehicles, but we also realize that we have to do aviation and other forms of municipal transportation, which will be big issues to solve. And if Windsor is the place where some of the solutions happen, it may also be easier to be the place where those solutions are enacted through production. Now, chips are in short supply and causing a problem. We can say the chips are down, but the chips were always down in the sense that they're not really a lucrative business. To produce chips is the return on investment is not very great, and the costs to set up factories and so on are very large. And we know that the United States is now setting up some big facilities, so perhaps it's not the area which one should go to compete. But sensors are always important, and the licensing of sensors will be something that could be quite lucrative. And the sensors are important for the cars, they're important for the bridge, they're important for cybersecurity, they're important for entertainment devices. There are going to be more and more applications around the world. According to the latest McKinsey report, they are recommending sensors as a strong area for investment. But when you look at sensors across Canada, they seem to be all located in Canada, which is right inside and just at the edge of Ottawa. And you see QNX, for example, there. If I were Windsor, I wouldn't try to steal these sensor production. But what I would do is I would envisage the whole corridor between Windsor and Ottawa as a kind of a large shopping mall, with Windsor being one anchor facility at one end and Ottawa being the anchor at the other end. This is really good, because otherwise everything goes to Toronto, and you want to get the breadth, and so that partnership and working together is really good. And sensors are produced. There's not a major factory to design them. So if there was a design that's still going on in Ottawa, but the proof of the design could be done in Windsor, and there were a collaborative venture, I think it could be a very strong way to look at the future development. So the licensing of those sensors would be important. Batteries is a huge topic right now, right across the whole world, actually. You can see people like Dr. Don at Dalhousie starting Center on Batteries, and companies developing there. And you can look right across the river at Wayne State. They've got something on batteries. It might be a smart idea to do just a little bit in that area and see if there are different materials that could be used that would be more environmentally friendly, hooking up with the environmentally friendly program that you have. There's also the Sherbrooke. Quebec has the Centre de Technologie Avancée, which could be an interesting connection. Because I think today we're looking at ways to connect communities and connect businesses. And the more Windsor is connected, the more you'll be that central hub that everything revolves around, and not a way that things pass through. I also wondered if you thought of joining Tsunami, the group of institutions across southern Ontario that are working on manufacturing, precision manufacturing, and so on. It starts in the Niagara region and it ends at Lambton College. Could be extended to Windsor, and I think that might be very useful. I know you just got a big grant from FedDev, but FedDev sponsors the whole Tsunami project and could be a source of additional funding for Windsor. And I add also the cybersecurity, which is important for the safe community, for border security, and for automotive security. So it's a theme that's pertinent to bridge, research, housing, and automobiles at the same time. In the reports that I read, there was a lot about the colleges and worry that students weren't staying in the region after graduation. And I would say, irrespective of whether they stay in the region after graduation or not, while they are students in the region, they are adding to the economy. They are eating, renting rooms, making purchases, enjoying the culture and sports in the city, adding to the city life. So I don't think that one should worry so much about the fact that they're not staying, but I think that one should worry about how to continue attracting them. And a lot of institutions nowadays are using companies that are building residential spaces, interesting residential spaces for students where, for example, a student can buy a condo and pay it off over the years of study, and then it could get resold to another student. Micro credentials are extremely important. The university has been a leader and has, I understand, over 130 already approved by the government. These are going to be funded through Innovation Canada, I understand. Those micro credentials could be stacked and lead towards a degree, and in collaboration with companies could lead to promotions, etc. It could lead to and include on-the-job training and academic training. So that's really important. The university is already involved. I don't know about the colleges so much, so that's something to look at. And then also the possibility of joint programming. For example, Carleton and Algonquin universities do a joint program. It's a 5-year program. At the end of the 5 years, you get the college degree and the university degree. And during the course of your studies, you spend 3 days a week at one institution and 2 at the other, depending on which year of the study it is. And what they're doing is animated design, which is a pretty specified program, a special program, but it's very important because the graduates of that program are really highly sought after for design in computing and animated design right around the world. So I really think that Windsor is coming up roses, and that's, after all, your flower, and it's also my name, so why do I think of it? But when you think about it, you've got the river, the lake, agricultural farmlands that are beautiful, productive. If you were living in Toronto, you'd have to drive several hours in terrible traffic to get to the country. And you've got it all within easy reach. I don't think you should think of yourself as at the end of the highway, but as the center a pivotal location, and you can demonstrate really interesting cross-border collaborations and solutions for global issues of health, the environment, national issues of security and trade, and regional issues of employment and community building. The pandemic, when I talk about what we've learned from the pandemic, well, we've learned we need self-sufficiency, so we're going to have to build out some extra capacity in manufacturing and research that we didn't have. But we also have learned that our population is a caring population, and that people are concerned not just about the economy, but about the environment and health. And these are important issues that we can work on, not just in education and not just in building the economy, but also in the communities that we build. It should reflect that care. And if we do, then I think the world will want to come to Windsor. So don't keep it a secret. Share your civic pride with everyone. When I was last in Windsor, a taxi driver drove me from the airport, and he told me, Windsor's a great place. It's warm, even into the fall, much warmer, much longer than anywhere else in Canada. And he was enthusing about the benefits of living in Windsor. And when I listened to him, I thought, the warmth is not just the temperature and not just the location, but it's the warmth of the population and the civic pride that people feel. So don't keep Windsor a secret. Share it with the rest of the country, and celebrate your community. Maybe even make little lapel rosettes as award, showing civic pride. So now I'd like to answer any questions you have, or try to anyway. And thank you so much for listening to me.
Perfect. Thank you, Roseann, for that intriguing presentation. The Q&A is now open. Please feel free to start entering your questions. And the very first question that I'm going to ask to get this started is, what role does the university city leadership see business schools playing in helping the community recover post-COVID? Business schools around the world have helped create intelligent communities around, especially in rethinking workflows, digitization, modeling new supply chains, and many others. And this comes from one of our faculty members in the School of Business. Mm-hmm.
So, well, School of Business is a great place to be and to graduate from right now, because it is really hard to find people in finance. There is a huge dearth of them, and we're looking for somebody to hire right now at the Canada Foundation for Innovation. So if there's a bilingual person in finance, please let us know. So there is a really great job market that the business schools need to move into. But I think that the list of things that one can do is very long, and institutions can't do them all. So my recommendation would be known for a few areas that you do really well. And why not do them in collaboration with other faculties? So with the Faculty of Science, work with them. And what combination of business and science would be really helpful? What combination of well, you've got that museum. Should you work with having interns work in the museum and understand the arts business? So I would say anchor the faculty in the school in what's there. Pick areas that you can really do, not everything, but also think about the future. And what are the future businesses that are going to take off? Well, it's pretty easy to think the environment is going to be the big one. Any business that is going to help the environment or make whatever we do more environmentally friendly is going to be big business. So how do you create classes and an environment where your students are going to be expert in that and thinking about it and innovating?
So to play on that question, the innovation of the future that you envision is integrated and it's interdisciplinary, requiring us to bring together unique things such as business and science, engineering, computer science, law and health science, arts and the social sciences. As a former university president, what is your advice to help continue to break down the traditional silos of research and study to inspire and strengthen innovation on campus and across the community?
That is a great question. So one way is what I always called blue sky sessions. And I used to bring together, I still do actually, groups of maybe 20 to 25 max people to sit down and just have a sandwich together and think about one specific question and field. What can we do to make it better? And part of what we've been doing lately at the CFI in the last couple of years is thinking, you know, when people get grants, it's to create a computer or to create a better computer or whatever to do. How do you do two things? One, beyond when in 1990 we invested in the first in artificial intelligence, but it wasn't called artificial intelligence. We traced the grants back, and that's what it was. How do we now go beyond artificial intelligence and quantum technology that everybody's excited about? But how do we sit down? And it could be a group at Windsor that sits down and says, what is going to be next? Where can we move things forward? And that's one thing. It's people thinking. And I really, there's always a big debate whether things should come down from the top or up from the bottom. And I think there has to be a meeting of the two molds. You know, it's the researchers that are going to have the ideas of what is possible and think about it, but the governments are going to have the ability to support that, and we have to bring those things together. So that's one thing. The other is, I think, creating spaces. I think environments are really important. When I was in Virginia, there were several centers of modeling and simulation around the country, and they bring all the engineers together and they do modeling and simulation. But the very best models are the most complex and thoughtful models that include other areas, other disciplines. So you can do a model of a road, but if the road includes the environmental considerations, the social considerations of the people living around the road, the economic considerations of where businesses are located, the model becomes much more complex and interesting. So rather than let modeling and simulation sit in the engineering building, we hired people that had specialization in modeling and simulation in every faculty. And when we would get called for advice on a model for this or that, we could immediately put together people with expertise in every subject to work on a question. So you create the environment that is for that. But you can also create a physical environment because in our engineering building, we had every floor was separate for, you know, mechanical engineering or whatever. But we said, oh, well, you know what? Every one of those areas needs computing. So let's take the computing engineering and build it on a vertical. So the computing engineering department was on every floor of the building in a stack, and they worked with the people on that floor, but also up and down. So it's perhaps reconfiguring the space that we have. And if you go to CERN in Switzerland, you know, where the big hydrogen synchrotron is, you see all the people in their labs all separated in buildings kilometers apart. But at lunchtime, they all come together in a cafeteria, and you hear the sound of everybody talking and action, a lot of action and ideas changing. And so it could also be a great idea changing space. places where people are encouraged to come together. And we've been trying, one of the things that the pandemic has shown us is that we can get together on the internet, but it's a little bit sterile because I can't see all the people that might be listening. Maybe there's only one of you out there. Hello. So we need to, when we come back, we need spaces where people can share that spark of conversation and inspiration.
Perfect, thank you. And we have a very strong audience listening in today. Building on that and going beyond the campus, can you talk about building effective strategies for network building in the community, with other institutions, with industry, that you have observed through your work with CFI?
Well, I can give two examples of effective network building. Well, I can actually give you more. If you go to Trois-Rivières in Quebec, the university, the college, and businesses are all working together on manufacturing, and they have a plan together. And the businesses have offices on the campus. The students are working off campus in the businesses, and you can see that they started out with what they were doing, very small, and now they're not just a regional hub, but companies are coming from around the world to access what they're doing, which is quite specialized. See it in Niagara, where the vineyards are. At the university, they're working in the biology department on the roots and the mold, and how to keep the plants safe over the winter when there's chill, and how to make better genetic resources for the plants, and they actually have spraying in the air, and where to spray, and how to predict exactly which area is going to be colder than another area. It's very, very high tech that the university has developed, and at the same time the community college has developed marketing courses for how would you market this, and they have tasting courses so that people can taste. It becomes a whole community thing. The town has got the theater, but they've also tied it to wine tasting, and the restaurants are selling the local wines, so it becomes a whole hub all together. So it's really interesting communication. If you can see it in other ways. If you look at Waterloo, the mayor of Waterloo said to me one day, the first grant to Waterloo came from the CFI to the Perimeter Institute. And because of that, the region invested, the province invested, the nation invested, and you have a really strong center. But it's spun out, and it's not just perimeter anymore. It's high-tech development, but it's also better schools, daycare, arts, sports, etc. So the sort of two models. One is all of the interests of the region coming around one thing, and the other is building that one thing, and the region comes around it.
Perfect, thank you. So from one of our guests, they say, thanks for a very warm talk. How do you suggest we undertake prioritization of the many important assets you have identified? Any potholes that we should be avoiding?
Potholes. Oh, that's a great topic. So, I tried to focus it on a few areas: on the university, on the housing, on the automotive manufacturing, and on the medical possibilities. So, I would suggest that each one of those areas makes a plan and tries to move ahead. And I think the pothole would be to move quickly. First of all, you can't do necessarily huge things. And it doesn't need to be huge. You can start small and targeted. So you have proteomics. What will be the next step to build the proteomics? Can proteomics link to UVic and Toronto? What can you do with proteomics? What can you do with manufacturing that would be linked to bioinnovation? We've got Jameson there. Is there any way that they're interested in expanding? We know that Moderna is now in Canada. Are they? What are they interested in working on? So one could look at that area through the medical school. I would also put in for the new doctors, but we know that will take some years. That will be 2 or 3 years. So you can't do everything at once, but raise the flag and say, here we are. Don't build another medical school. We can help you. So I think that would be, it would be what you can do now and has to be done now because there are opportunities, and then what you should list for the future. Same way with the housing. There are a lot of possibilities for housing in Windsor, a lot of locations. Do you go around the university? Do you do something downtown? Where would be the best place to start and do something that you could do really well? And then the transportation, you can link that housing to what the other parts in a really exciting way. The bridge is an opportunity that you can't let go by, because if you do it and it doesn't work, it's sort of like when you have a football team and it has a losing season. It's really hard to ever sell tickets again after that. So you got a bridge. It's a splashy, wonderful thing. So how do you keep it going?
So I'm being told that we have time for one last question, and I'm going to do one of the questions that comes from Dr. Jean Coutu, who is the director of the School of Computer Science here on campus. And he notes that computer science has been growing dramatically over the last couple of years. They've been working with local industry to provide local jobs, but we are in a global competition for talent. And so as we're creating these students, we're trying to build the opportunities here, we're losing them to everywhere else. How do we make sure that we are strengthening this region to keep the talent here, to build that innovation here without, and really competing in a national and international stage?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I always think that the talent is what attracts business. So when you get a good talent pool, business comes. So if you have a really strong talent pool in IT, then the city's economic developers should be going out to companies and saying, we've got this talent pool, you should set up here. This is what you can do. And I think you already got some new IT in that center downtown from across the river. But I would say, yeah, the talent should attract the business. And if you look at it, Silicon Valley didn't exist, and then the universities were set up. Stanford existed, and then Silicon Valley came. The same way with the area around Boston, you had the universities, and the business came around them. So you're starting with the talent. You've got the strong students. Yeah, sure, you're going to lose some of them right away, but go out and bring those companies in and say, we've got to sell this. We've got to sell Windsor. I think that probably the Canadian embassy can help with that, because when I lived in the States, the Canadian embassy was going around to different institutions and saying, where can we set up Canadian companies here, and where can we bring companies back to Canada? And so, the government economic development can help, but as well, the city's economic development should be on those trade missions.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And that wraps up today's session. Thank you, Dr. Runte, for joining us today. You have left us a lot to think about. And thank you to our virtual audience who took the time in their busy day to share a coffee and their thoughts bright and early this morning. We will be drawing another prize winner from today's attendees for a $200 University of Windsor and City of Windsor prize package. I hope you will join us again for the final session scheduled for November 4th. It is with Angela Mondu, President and CEO of TechNation. Mondu's unique career path includes 10 years as a military officer specializing in global supply chain and logistics, followed by 18 years in senior level leadership roles in technology and defense sectors. She will be presenting how the pandemic disruption has provided an opportunity to Canada and the critical learnings that have surfaced over the last 2 years. On behalf of the University of Windsor and the City of Windsor, have a wonderful day, and thank you for taking the time for joining us this morning.